Hello, what's up, everybody? This is Seth Parnell, the minister of the Portia Church of Christ, and this is episode 146 of Midweek Bible Study. We're almost getting there to 150. We're 4 episodes away from 150. That's pretty cool. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and we appreciate you dropping by here. Whether you're going to watch this later on, or whether you're here with us now, we want to let you know that we appreciate you. And like I said, I hope you're doing well. Hope you've had a pretty good day so far. We always want to extend you an invitation. If you're someone who is in the Portia area, we meet at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock on Sunday morning and 5 o'clock on Sunday night. And then when do we meet on Wednesday? 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock on Wednesday night. And so if you're in the area, hopefully you can come join us sometime. We would love to see you, love to talk with you, and get to know you. And it's always good to meet new people, to meet people who share the same faith, people who have some of those similar priorities as far as we do. And so it'd be good to see you. So I hope you always have an invitation. Also, if you have any suggestions, if you have any topics that you'd like for us to cover, then please feel free to send that our way as well. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear what you think about what we talk about. Love to hear your thoughts on our studies. And so know that you can do that as well. But other than that, we are going to be taking a look at Luke chapter 14 tonight. Luke chapter 14. We got a number of people who are here already. We got Cheryl Herring. She says hello. And I hope that you are doing well. Thank you for being here tonight. We got Ted Knight. He is here. Hope you're doing good. Always appreciate you being here with us. And we got Donna as well. Hope you're doing good. Appreciate you being here. And it's always good to see you guys supporting us, as you do. But like I said, we're going to be in Luke chapter 14. This is a kind of a short little story that we find, and it's something that Jesus did, quite often. And if you look at, verses 1 through 6 in chapter 14, Jesus is going to do something, like I said, that he does a lot, throughout the gospel story. I mean, we find many instances in which Jesus goes out, he finds someone with a problem, or somebody comes to him with a serious problem. Oftentimes, they have a problem that can't be fixed otherwise. We have several accounts of people who were healed that the Bible especially makes mention they couldn't find any other source of healing. They couldn't find any other relief from their condition, and so they kind of go to Jesus as a last minute thing. And so it's definitely something that Jesus does a lot. And you can probably think of the blind man, the man that was mute. He healed the centurion's daughter. He's someone who showed the people that he had authority over all the physical things of this earth. There was nothing that Jesus could not do. There was nothing that he was outside of his power. And this kind of went forward with physical things as well. And so we find it here in Luke chapter 14, where he heals a man on the Sabbath. And there's some extra things that go into this as far as the actual healing goes. But this is going to be, like I said, a short little story that proves something that Jesus does all the time. In chapter 14, starting in verse 1, it says, "One Sabbath, when he went to dine at the house of a ruler of the Pharisees, they were watching him carefully. And behold, there was a man before him who had dropsy. And Jesus responded to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, 'Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not?' But they remained silent. And then he took him and healed him. He took him and healed him and sent him away. And he said to them, 'Which of you, having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well on a Sabbath day, will not immediately pull him out?' And they could not reply to these things." So Jesus, is he's going to dinner, at the house, of a ruler of the Pharisees. This ruler is not named, but he's highlighted here as someone who invited Jesus, over to his house, and he goes. And that Jesus would eat, with just about anybody, whether it was, the tax collectors, and the people that everyone else, threw out, or whether it was these, Pharisees and these Sadducees, people he would criticize pretty heavily, later on. Jesus, he would be someone who would be around, anybody. And that's certainly something that, we could learn from, as people. We never push people, out, never think that we are, better than other people, or people are not worthy of our interaction, or worthy, of our presence. But if anyone could say that, Jesus could have said that, because he was the Son of God, he was the Messiah. But yet we find him, there, with the people. And there was another man who was there. It says a man who had dropsy. And if you're not familiar with dropsy, it was kind of the kind of abnormal swelling, of his body. It's something that was not a pleasant condition to deal with. But yet this man, was here, with in the presence of Jesus. And it says that Jesus responds to the lawyers and to the Pharisees. This is not just one Pharisee. There's a large group of people here. It's kind of a large dinner. And he asks them a question. He says, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? And this, as you're probably familiar, the Sabbath day was one of the commands that God had given to the Israelites, as they had left, Egypt. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. It was a time of rest. It was a time that they would kind of slow down on the things that they would do, and kind of dedicate that time in order to turn to God and to worship God in what he does. And this was something that was followed for a very long time. But over time, the Pharisees had kind of grabbed hold of that, and it kind of, added to it. They kept adding to, the requirements, to keep the Sabbath. And this was, they had done it, so much that this was one of their primary laws that they would keep. When they criticized Jesus, several times for not keeping, the Sabbath. And so he asked them, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? And what do they say to that? Well, it says they remained silent. They didn't want to say anything. They didn't want to put anything out there that would cast them in a bad light. And so it says that they, remained silent. And so it says that, what did Jesus do? Oftentimes Jesus would use situations. So he would use, people in order to teach a lesson. Not only would he change this person's life by healing him of his condition, but he would also use that opportunity to teach a lesson to the people that were around him. And so he says, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? Is this something that is not permitted? And we do have another Bible story in which Jesus has an encounter with the Pharisees, I believe, in which, they instead of remaining silent in this case, they openly say, do not heal on the Sabbath. Wait until, the middle of the week, or wait till, the Sabbath day is over. And so he asks them this, but it says that they remain silent there in verse 4. And then it says, then he took him, and he healed him and sent him away. Jesus took him, he healed him, and then he sent him away. Jesus didn't overlook, this man. He didn't get tied up in all of the, kind of the fanfare and all the procedure, of a dinner. But he saw this man was suffering from this condition, and he healed him, and then he sent him away. You imagine if you're dealing with something that is severe, and all of a sudden, this problem that has defined much of what you do in your life is suddenly gone. There's probably a lot of places he wanted to go, probably a lot of things that he wanted to do. He probably wanted to go to his family and tell them, the good news. If he had family, he would want to do that. And so he was able to leave once Jesus had healed him. And Jesus poses a couple of other questions to him there in verse 5, where he says, which of you having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well on a Sabbath day will not immediately pull him out? And it says that they could not reply to these things. They had tied up, they had gotten tied up in all of the kind of the legal aspects of keeping these different traditions, of keeping these different things. And one thing that had gone missing from what the Pharisees did was compassion. It was kindness. It was empathy with these individuals. They would a lot rather see somebody suffer and keep these traditions than they would reach out their hand and to help somebody and to improve somebody's life. And Jesus says basically this is not the way that a Christian should be. This is not the way in which a follower of God should operate, because in this grand scheme of things, compassion and this care for people, is very very important. It's something that's extremely important, to God. And so he takes this man and he heals him, and he shows him this compassion. And when he poses him these questions, he says that in verse 6, they could not reply to these things. At first they remained silent, and then they couldn't reply to these things. Because if you have a child, and he says that he falls in the situation that Jesus uses, if you have a child who falls into a well, if he falls into a dangerous situation, you're not going to say, well, good luck. We'll come back tomorrow and see if we can get you out of there. No, you're going to do whatever you can in that moment, to save, that child's life. That's what you're going to do. And he says, even if it's not a child, even if it's, an ox, that has gotten into trouble as well, are you not going to take steps in order to help him out? You would help, an ox, but you're not willing to help, people. You're not willing to help, this person, who is, suffering. And so they wanted him to mess up, because as you see there in verse 1, it says that, when he went to dine at the house, the ruler of the Pharisees, it says they were watching him carefully. They were watching Jesus, very, very carefully. They were wanting to know what he was going to do. Was he going to make, a mistake? Was he going to do something that they could, come down on him and criticize him for? What was Jesus going to do? And in the end, they go from verse 1 and watching him carefully down to verse 6, where it says that they could not reply to these things. And so Jesus, he says, that this is, people are important. People, are very, very important, to God. And when you overlook them, you overlook a big part, of what Christianity is about. Because when you look at the broad picture of, the commands that we are given, what we are told, a lot of the commands that a Christian, has to keep in their heart, they have to do with other people. Love your neighbor as yourself, the second greatest command. You can't keep that, just by yourself, but that involves other people. This act of being forgiving, this act of kindness, the act of, looking out for those who are unfortunate. As James says, your pure religion is undefiled, to care for the orphan and the widow, to keep oneself, unspotted from the world. In order to be, to live in righteousness, in order to be pleasing to God, we have to care, for people. As Jesus so many times exemplifies, in his life. He wasn't going to put, these traditions, over, the plight, of this, person. And again, the wisdom of Jesus, it confounds, these who were experts, in the law, these people who were supposed to be, the best of the best when it came to this. But yet they could not, they could not follow up what Jesus had to say here. And so a couple of things I think that we could, take from this is that, of course, we know that Jesus, he has the ability, he has, the power. Being the Son of God means that he is exactly who he says he was, and he has, the power to heal. He can heal, a man who is blind, a man, who is lame, a man who is suffering from dropsy. He can heal, a broken heart. Jesus can heal, and if we're someone who's willing to be open up, if we're willing someone to come to him, we can be healed, as well. We also see that Jesus, he cared for people. He cared for them, and he cared for them deeply. He wasn't going to overlook them. He wasn't going to push them away. But Jesus, cared, deeply for the people that he encountered. And in order to be a Christian, in order to be someone who follows that example and is, pleasing to God in our own right, we have to care for people as well. And that's sometimes that's difficult, to do. Sometimes that takes a lot of effort. Sometimes that, is not the path of least resistance, but it is something that has great reward. I think we can look forward to that. But with that said, I think that's all that we have here tonight. It's a little bit of a short episode tonight, but hopefully this was something that benefited you. And I hope that you will be back with us next week as we'll look at another subject in the Bible and seek to gain a better understanding of what the Word of God has for us. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful night. And as we say, hope you go out and be kind to someone, be compassionate to someone, and hope you go out and glorify God in everything that you do. And we'll catch you next time.